Welcome everyone. My name is Maria Barnes and I am the chapter president of Access Lunchtime. Today's topic is modern charts. If you are not familiar with the latest and greatest that is going on in Microsoft Access, there has recently, as of I believe it's early summer monthly release in Office 365 and soon to be in the semi-annual channel of Office 365, as well as in Access 2019, some new, more modern charts available in Microsoft Access. So today we're going to talk about those, do a little bit of comparing and contrasting on those as to what they look like and how they differ from the old charts that were in Access, and review the ins and outs of how to go about setting them up and how to use them. If you have any questions as we go, right now the audience is muted, and for those that have joined us late, we are recording this call. You should hopefully both see a PowerPoint presentation and soon to be some Access demos and be able to hear my voice. So if you cannot do that, let me know via the chat conversation. If you have any questions as we go, let me know there as well, or comments, and I will try to leave some time at the end so that we can unmute the audience and ask other questions as well. But feel free to go ahead and use the chat. I'll try to keep an eye on that as well. All right, so I'm going to use today in the sample here our famous Northwind database and the data behind it. This is a sample database available to you online. I believe also through the templates in Microsoft Access you can get the Northwind database. And so I've started by setting up a couple different chart forms to compare and contrast the old charts on the top versus the new charts on the bottom, where they are the same. And new chart wise, there are actually, I believe, 11 chart types, 3 each of column charts, clustered, stacked, and 100% stacked, 3 of bar, 3 of line, then there's a pie chart, and then something brand new that there's no parallel to in the old Access charts, which is the combo chart. So the difference between how they look, you can see that the new charts look much more like you are used to now seeing in Excel, snazzier, a little bit more modern looking. There's a line chart example. Again, the old versions on top, the new versions on the bottom. And these are pretty much as like-to-like comparable as I could make them on this. The combo box, here's a combo box where we have a line and a bar, let's see, a column rather, all combined on one form, and there's nothing like that in the old version of Access charts. So let's take a look at what these look like in design view. And first of all, I just want to clarify that the old charts have not gone away. So you can still get to the old charts. I always love these. Here with the chart control. So this under the design mode, these are the old charts. And how you would continue to use old charts and set up new ones. from Access. Then the new charts are on this new button here that says Insert Chart. So when you're looking for old versus new, if you want the new version, use the Insert Chart button, and then you can see the different types for column, bar, and line. Pie, there's only one choice right now, and combo is the brand new one. So to insert an old chart, again, just to repeat that, you would go to your control area and to the chart, and then just so I can show you, it gives you like a wizard like you are used to, where you choose things, you know, what table you want, what fields you want, what chart type, that kind of thing, for the old version here. For the new version, it's much simpler as far as inserting it. You would insert and select what you wanted and click, and it puts that chart on your page. And then once you have the chart on the page, you can use either a brand new section, which is this chart settings pane, or the property sheet, which has a bunch of different settings on it. Most of them are in the format area. There is a few set properties that you can set in the data area of the chart. When I played with it, I felt like it was best to start with the chart settings area and get basic things set up. And then for fine-tuning of things that didn't appear in the chart settings, then you can use the Format tab. So let me show you a little bit about how one would get set up, and then we can review each of my samples and what the settings are on those. So the first thing in the chart settings is to choose your data source. You can look at both your tables and queries, or you can choose one or the other. For example, set up something like inventory sold. Then when you choose that, you get a smart list of fields, and it allows you to choose your x-axis, your y-axis, and it also shows you in like real-time design mode what you've done. So if you, for example, select the quantity sold, then it demonstrates that over here. And this maybe isn't a very good example. Why would I want the product ID? But it shows you on the right side. And then again, if you choose something for the legend, then you can see what it is. And there's an easy way. If you mess it up, you just undo what you have done before, and it goes back to whatever it was before. So let's take a look here at some of these existing ones and what those look like with a little bit better data samples. So in this case, I've chosen product sales by category. If you look over at the property sheet, this will tell you what the chart type is, and you can actually change the chart type into one of the other chart types right from this property sheet, which is really awesome. You have the category on the x-axis, and we've got the y-axis as the amount over here. There's no series in this case. So that's on the data tab of the chart settings. And then we also have a format tab over here. And in that, if you've got multiple data series, you can actually choose which one you're working with. It's a little bit not obvious to me, and I'll show you that on the combo chart. But when I first saw this, I was like, oh, great, here's the series sum of amount. How do I get to the other one? I wasn't noticing that this is a drop down box, because whatever is showing up here, similar to the drop down box on a property sheet, the rest of the properties below apply to that particular series. So in this chart's case, there is only one data series, but if you have multiple ones, you would set the settings for the one series, and then you would change the data series to the other one, and then set the properties for that series next. So you can do things like change the display name, which is what shows here in the key. So you could call it sum of amount if you want, and notice, look, it magically appears as you're going. So you can see, and I just love this interactive piece of it. You can see what you're doing, and if you don't like it, you make a spelling error, or whatever, you can see right away. You can plot the series on the primary axis or the secondary axis. Useful if you've got a couple different series and you want to have the values on one series be over on the left side and on the other series over on the right side. You can change the color to be a different color just by doing that. You can make the border color different than the fill color if you want. That's what this is, and I think it looks odd like that myself. Looks better when they're the same, but you have some flexibility. There's a data label which you can display or not display. There's trend line options. If you want to do some kind of a trend line, it'll show you a trend line, and you can name the trend line. I don't know where that shows, sorry, but those are the options. And then over here on the property sheet, you can do more things. You can choose whether the chart has a subtitle or a title. Sorry, start at the top or not. If you wanted to turn off the title, you could just say no, and that turns off the title. You can change what the title is. Sales by category is what this is, but you could just change it to sales, for example. Oh, here's the test trend indicator. There we go. Let me call this, just so it looks a little better here, and I'm going to change this back to amount. You can do things like, for instance, expand this just a little bit so you can see better. Put a title on the primary axis. I chose to put dollars there because I was trying to imitate what had been done in this particular one. And you can also have a axis category axis title. You can do things with the minimums and maximums here of the values. Much nicer in my mind than the old interface. And let me just remind you of what the old interface looked like. If you want to change one of the old charts, and I'll just be upfront with you, I got to the point in Access where I pretty much stopped using charts. They just seemed archaic looking to me, and if I needed to use a chart, I exported the data to Excel and I used the charts there. But I'm pretty excited about Access now having the basic, what I would call the basic chart types in a modern form, and unless we're going to get into something that is super detailed and needs a special chart, at this point going forward, I would be more likely to go ahead and design a chart right within Access. Then I don't have to bother with the export. Okay, so the chart object shows up if you want to edit an old chart. Notice that if you're going in here, there's no chart object on the new version. And they're set up very differently. I believe it's the actual type of an object is like an OLE object within the old type within Access. So you can see, where did that go? Oh, here. So all these different options for chart options appear up here, and chart types gives you some different types to choose. So that looks very different than, you've got your data sheet here, very different than when you are talking about this chart settings area and the property sheets fields. There's very minimal things you can do with the property sheet in the old types of charts. Just trying to show where it has the type. Oh, here, OLE type. So it is, yeah, it's an OLE object, or the old type of charts were the OLE objects, and not so with the new ones here. They are a new type of chart object. Okay, let's look at a couple of the other ones. Let's look at the, let me make this a little bigger here, the bar chart. Again, very similar. Here's the format. There's only one format here, and the data. This is an example of one with more fields to it, and you can do different things with it. You know, if you wanted to include the category and the product name or something like that, then you could choose them both. Then you could do something like, oops, not here. Let's count. Oh, so when you do these, that's another thing that's not intuitively obvious here. You know, you check the amount. Then if you hover over that, you also get a drop-down box. So if you wanted some, great. If you wanted, in this case, it chose count, whoops, and clicked it. You could do like the minimum or something like that if you wanted to. You know, you have to judge, of course, what makes sense to you. You know, the fact that this is in parentheses here gives you the clue that it's there, but you really can't see that drop down until you hover over that. So in this case, then, if we've got 2, then we have 2 series here. So the sum of the amount, we had already set it up, and the minimum order, you just switch like that, and then that switches, and so you could just change this, for example, to date. And if you wanted to plot that one on the secondary axis instead, you know, then you would have the 2 different axes that you could vary that off of. And, you know, maybe you didn't want to be orange and blue. I personally like those. I'm an Illini by nature from University of Illinois. But if you wanted to change, you know, the fill color of the one to something else, you know, then you can easily do so right here. Let's look at the line chart. And automatically when you select a chart, the chart settings pops up. If you have the property sheet closed, you know, then it does not pop back up. You know, it operates just like you're used to the property sheet showing. You can also get to it, of course, from your design view by just toggling the property sheet on and off up here. So this one is a line chart. With that one, again, we've got the type here, which for line there are again 3 versions of it. So if you wanted to change it, for example, to a stacked line, you could do so, or a line stacked 100%. Let me show you what maybe some of the others look like. For instance, this is a clustered bar. This is your stacked bar. Maybe I just don't have a good example of data that's in there. Try the column one a minute here. I think you've got to have 2 types to get the stacked or the other one showing like makes sense. But what will happen if you get 2 amounts is those will show, like one will show above the other in the stacked. Maybe I can find a good example of those before we're done here. Anyway, for the line here, again, very similar types of settings. On the format, we have a few different settings. You can change like the line weight, where you make it be a, why am I not seeing that? Maybe it's, there you go. I don't know what I did there, but where you increase the weight and make it be a heavier weight. You can change it to, you know, like a dotted line if you want. There's something that you can choose for missing data. You can plot it as 0. You could do not plot, which is the default, or you can plot it as interpolated, which I believe it would just kind of plot it, but between the points on either side. I believe that's what that means. You can have markers for there, like you can have square markers, and I think that doesn't make as much sense with the dotted, but you get the idea where you can have your data points have markers or not. And again, you can have trend lines even on the line chart. And let's see, let's go to the pie chart and take a quick look at that. I am my time here because I want to cover these so you can see them, but then I have a couple other things to cover about charts in general, besides just the different types and the settings. So I want to make sure not to lose sight of that here. All right, so the pie chart, same kind of setup here, and this is a very, I think, Excel type interface to set up the category series and y-axis. And then for pie, there's not very much. There's just basically, do you want to display the data label or not display the data label? And if you had multiple series, again, you would choose that. For the combo chart, here's the exciting new one that's not even in the old charting. For this one, again, you want to set up the same kind of thing. So notice here, we're looking at a query that's product sales by category and month. So it's got dual columns in it. We have in there the order month, the category, excuse me, and the amount. So the x-axis, I've got month, order month selected, and then the y-axis I have two, both category and amount selected. And again, the amount I've chosen to be a sum in this case. For the category, I've chosen the count of categories. And then for differentiating between the two, at this point, the format looks a little different. So again, you have to choose which series you're working with. So right now, I'm choosing the category, count of categories series. And you've got the display name, and here you have something different, the chart type. So in this case, I've chosen the column clustered. You know, if you wanted to do one of the other types for that, you could do so. Like if you wanted to do bar clustered, for example, on that. So this is where it's a combo. It's two types of charts combined into one data set, and you can use a different chart type for each of the two series if you would like. You don't have to, but if you don't, then you're not really making a combo chart. You're really dealing with, you know, just like if you chose both of these to be column clustered, for example, I'll just show you that. And we went over here to sum of amount, and instead of choosing the line, we chose column clustered again. Then that's really no different than choosing the column chart, which is just that type of chart, a column clustered chart, and having plotting two values on the y-axis. So the power in this combo chart is the fact that you can choose two different chart types, one for one series and one for the other. I think this is just fantastic and really, really exciting. And again, we can take this and we can choose to do different things with it. This is sum of amount. I've got count of categories. So if I wanted to put category instead of category count, you know, I could do so. And notice here the display name is affected here in the chart title, but then we also have titles for the axis. Down here we've got the category access, and again, when we're talking about category, we mean category as in this kind of category, not the category that we're talking about right here. And then we've got the primary axis title, which that can still be category count, even though the title of the series for count of category and the display name was category. So you can have those be different things if you want. Let's see, what else can you do here just to cover that? Again, you can use, I set this up to do auto range, but you can set the range. You can set the font color and size of the axis. Most of those are other non-chart. You can use or change the position of the legend. You can make it at the top, you can make it at the right, you can make it at the bottom, you can make it at the left. all those things, and change the color and the font size. In that, you can change the border color, lots of different things. And then here we have, again, access to the row source for that. That is also here, in the data. When we have the data source, it's called data source there. You can even see the SQL that is and this is true of all the chart types, all the new chart types. You can see the SQL of the transformation, because it really takes this query and then transforms it into some type of grouping or totals query. So here is the query itself and the values, and then you see here that we've got group by, count, and sum in our built query. These are the same things that you're setting here. If you change this, instead of count, if you change it to average, for example, then you would see this change to average here. And notice that sometimes we've got a little bit of flakiness going on. I'm just gonna that's interesting. I'll report that. Go back to average here and see what happens when I run this. Oh, there we go. No, maybe not. Where was I at? Yeah, I was on this one. Let me run this. Data type mismatch. So I guess if you have something that doesn't make sense in whatever you're doing, and your preview starts to go blank, that might be a warning to you that something's going on. And we might be able to fix that, adjust it somehow. Let's see, we got that in line, and we wanted that in clustered. All right, well, I've messed up my chart here because it doesn't look anything like it did before. So let's take a quick look here at what it was. Chart combo. Okay, there it is, back to what it originally was. Okay, so let's double check some other things here. Okay, and then so a couple of the different features of the new modern charts. We've got a brand new chart settings pane. You can do a lot more fine-tuning with the property sheet. No need to go into this odd-looking chart object settings that has something that's not very user-friendly. You can still link your chart to data on a form or report, and now they've actually enabled the combo lists to function. So you could always link your chart to data. And I'm just going to close the chart settings here, because what I want to look at in that sense is the property sheet. So see where you can link child fields from the parent object, which in this case is the form, to, whoops, I'm sorry, I'm highlighting the child fields. So child fields would be the chart object, the product ID, and the chart object. And the master fields would be from the parent, which in this case is the form. So I linked the two of those together so that when we're talking about row 1, we're getting a chart that's based on the product that's showing in row 1. When we're looking at row 2, we get a chart that's showing what's for row 2. So you could always do this in the old chart types as well, But for those charts, you couldn't do that in a continuous form like this, and now you can. So here we've got Northwind Traders Chai, and it's got whatever this is, 14, 15 sold, or 15,000 sold, or whatever it is. Then we've got Syrup, and that's got 50, and notice that they're even in this case, and that's probably a setting. There's probably like an auto setting, but they're even scaled differently. You might want to turn that off so you get a little bit more visual chart example down here. Okay, so you can do that. You can link chart data to the data on a form or report. The old charts are still there. Some of the properties, if there is not something in there in the code that you can see under the property, you might have to use the properties label name, properties with the property name in the code. And let me see if I can show you that so that you can understand more what that means. So for example, if we were going to look here, I gotta choose actual chart. Okay, I'm gonna go to the form event here. Okay, and if I wanted to access this chart, let's see what it's called. In this case, it's just chart 3. You can see that there are a lot of different exposed properties right in the VBA interface to this, but some of them are not exposed. So if you wanted to access one of them that you knew was a property and see what that was, and it wasn't available here because not all of them are. Most of them are, but not all of them. Then you would use something like this. And then take a quick look at what that is here. I don't think I have this right. Take a quick look. Love it when you try to spontaneously illustrate something in a demo. All right, I don't know what I'm doing wrong here, but I'll just skip over that demo. I'll try to get back to you and research that and get back to you on my blog, the Access Lunchtime blog, and we can take a quick look at why this isn't working and what the correct for that, so that I don't have to waste our time here and we can finish up. Okay, so let's see what else here. Couple things. You have to be a little bit careful with the new charts as far as backward compatibility. You can still use, if you are working in the version of Office 365 or in 2019 and you have new charts available, you can continue to use the old charts and they will still work. And then the new charts will work. If your user base who you are designing for is not in the newer versions of Office, for example, you're the developer, you've got Office 2019 and you're designing for a client and they've got 2013, then they are not going to be able to run the new charts in their older version. They have to have a version that has the Office charts in them in order to run the charts. That's a requirement. So, however, you can do things if you've got a mixed base of users where some of your users might have 2019, maybe they're migrating the Office slowly to it or something like that. But you need to be a little bit careful about how you do that. You want to have, for example, one form, if you need both of them operating side by side, you would have one form that had the old way in it and one that had the new way with the new chart, and those you can put code in there to figure out what kind of version they are running. Those that are running on the older version, you would want to open the form with the old chart. And those with the newer version, you could safely open the form with the new chart. If you don't do something like that, then when the user opens or tries to open that form, with the new chart in it, they will get an error. So you want to try to avoid that. And you also need to be aware that if you try to use some of the new properties in code, for example, to make your chart be interactive, or to set something for something specific or some specific event on your form, then that might not compile, or likely will not compile, in an older version of Access. And if you're going to pass code to an older version user base, then you'll want to compile that in the oldest version for them. So just be cautious of that when you're starting to implement these. They're great, but you do need to be conscientious of your user base and make sure that if you're going to have a mixed level user base, that you do this in an intelligent manner so that you don't end up with broken forms or that for the older clientele. There's also an interesting blurb that you can watch here on interactive charts. And when I say interactive charts, I'm not talking about like a Power BI kind of thing where you can drill down into your pie chart. We're not talking about the pie where you can click. I gotta put this in run mode here, where you can click, for example, on this and then get a blow up display of what the criteria in here is, or the specific data in here. I'm not talking about that kind of interactive, but I'm talking about the kind of interactive where you could, for example, have a form that had this sales by category on it, and you could have a drop-down box over here, and if your data source allowed and had different types of slice and dice amounts here, maybe you could change the x-axis to be filtered on something else. For example, if you have, hopefully this is a good example here. Yeah, if you wanted to change, the amount, instead of doing the amount, do the category. Well, this is x-axis. Instead of doing sales by category, if you wanted to do sales by amount or something, you could design a combo box over here where you could choose these different possible categories or whatever made sense, and then in code behind that click event, change the setting for the axis category. So I'm talking about that kind of interactive. There's a great example of that at minute 14:30 on Mikhail's demo that I'm going to show you here. Got a couple different further resources that you can take a look at. There are 2 tech community blogs that Mikhail Barr, from Microsoft wrote. This is the first one. I put it up here. And that is like an introduction to the new modern chart types. It covers a lot of things that we covered today, but maybe from a slightly different viewpoint and with different examples. And then there is a Ignite presentation that is pretty recent, and in there she talks about the charts in general and the new types, and there's also a gentleman, and I'm drawing a blank on the name here. Let's get his name so I don't leave him out. Tim Getch. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. Sorry, Tim. He was the previous Access program manager and runs his own company now, and he demos some actual charts that he's incorporated into the software that his team uses to manage things internally. So that is in there, and I think it's 14:30 on this first, the modern chart types. Actually, no, because that's not a video. So it's got to be this second one that is minute 14:30 that you want to take a look at if you want to look at the interactive piece. There's also some nice documentation that Office has put together on the charts, and that explains a little bit more about if you're not familiar with making charts, what the x-axis is, or the category, what the y-axis is, what the legend means and how that is used, those kind of concepts, as well as specifically, click on the format tab and then you can see that kind of documentation. If you don't want to sit here and listen to my video over again, and you've because this is being recorded, and in about a week you should be able to re-listen to it if you want to. Anyway, so that is a good resource for if you want just documentation about this. And then here's some of my contact information. You can reach me via email, phone, Twitter, my business site. Also want to make a couple plugs here for Access User Groups. This next month, the Access with SQL Server group is going to have Mikhail Barr who is the Senior Program Manager for Microsoft Access, talk a little bit about the state of Access 2019 versus 365 and what's in what, and demo the new link table manager, which we saw last month in Access Lunchtime. There's also other upcoming events from all the other different groups. Our next lunchtime will be right after Thanksgiving. Can you believe the holidays in the US at least are coming that soon? Next month we're going to have a guest speaker, Jack Leach from Diming Services, I think is how you pronounce that. And he's going to talk about remote backend databases and specifically with SQL Server and a couple other things, and some gotchas. You know, what do you have to do in the case of different preparation, and you know what is straightforward, and what further work you have to do such a thing. So that should be very interesting. Please join us at the end of this next month for that. And then I just want to open it up. We've got about 9 minutes left to questions. Let me try to, excuse me, unmute the audience if I can here. Okay, if we don't have any questions, I guess I will go ahead and end just a few minutes early, and you can use that to take a quick break before your 1 p.m. activities. I really appreciate talking to everyone and our time together here today. Thank you.